computer out there to connect to the internet. And then, so that's, the speaker was that, but it would go in and out this and that. So.
I'm curious if different body parts represent different things in your understanding, and like, what do the thumbs represent?
Earth, usually. And so related to stomach and spleen. Mm-hmm. So it's, I was going to get the whiteboard. That'd be great, yeah. It's just leaning on the bench there. It's a good lead-in here to a discussion of the sort of logic behind the mudras, and also one way that we map energy cycles onto the hand. So the branches in particular have a pattern around the creases of the finger and the fingertips that are correlated to each of these and are kind of activated by the thumb, the self-center integrator of the elements and of the fingers. So we'll look at that pattern in more detail as well. So I have
I also have a question. Do you mind me asking this minute?
No, go ahead.
So I've studied traditional Chinese medicine in the sense of shiatsu and the sense of the meridians. And then I know somebody who studied Jinshin Jitsu, and when she's talked about different meridians, it's different. And I'm curious if you can quickly share how, because my impression is they're both coming from China, right, and the understanding of the systems in the body, but I'm curious how they delineated to be different, because like I would think of the thumb as like long in its pair of large and small.
Right. So the main confusion is for a lot of people, including I think the teaching institutions of Chinese medicine, are the symbolic, kind of one step more abstract than meridian associations. And so there are organ system and element associations for each of the 5 fingers that are distinct from the meridians in those fingers.
Okay.
And so, so the meridians, they're important, they're here, but when we talk about the meaning of the thumb, or if you're talking about the 6 relationships, the familiar relationships that have a hierarchical, so you know if you hurt your finger that, you know, your grandfather might be about to have an accident or something in particular, because they have structural associations in that way as well. So the main thing is the symbolic relationship to the organ systems and elements, and as distinct from the meridian relationships. And the organ systems it's usually thought of more in the 5 elements and the Heavenly Stem series that we did in the spring, which are the yin and yang of each of the 5 elements, and they have body associations. And with those, we think of the eyes with wood and liver, for example, or the tongue as fire and heart. Here we more focus on the meridians, but those elemental associations are all mixed in together as well.
Would the meridians almost be like the roots? And some kind of
Yeah, so the body is a general category is yin. It is heavy and dense compared to light, like sunlight, and the meridians are of the body in this way, and the organ systems are actually more closely related to spirit, and they're ruled over by a particular spirit, which are part of those incantations for the Tugunashin form we do with the heavenly stems. And they would be the heavenly yang, brighter, lighter, more spirit, immaterial part of the equation, whereas the meridians in the body are the yin, earth expressions of those energy patterns. That's the T, John and Alan. Just me on the Zoom, I can make that go away.
Can I say one more thing? Just for,
Yeah, please.
because it's just long, so the stillness, someone is that merging point, right? The stillness is that.
In between the contraction and expansion, you mean?
Mm-hmm. It's of the sets and their cycles.
Between the stems and the branches, kind of the heavenly energies and the earthly energies.
Because when you say that way, but happening, they're in their cycles, and then the stillness is kind of that, right? That like that
Yeah.
variable.
So yes, I usually think of it as, or articulate it as between the contraction and expansion, because we can have a kind of visceral relationship to that. It is the center without location, and so it is the pivot of those two yin and yang systems interacting and cycling, or more, really, it's the pivot of the whole thing. They're cycling together, and the full picture is we see best when we're looking at both the stem and branch energies, and they do affect one another. But really, the center is the pivot of the whole thing moving together, as opposed to the stem and the branch.
Would you say like axis? Or, I mean, would that be another synonymous representation?
Yep, axis would work. Yep. Yeah, and that's nice because it's abstract to begin with, so it having no dimension into that.
When you said the whole picture, you were gesturing sort of heaven and earth.
Mhm.
You mean of a moment, a particular moment in time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is identified and articulated with these patterns, either just a branch or just a stem, or a combination which forms the pattern of 60, which I'll say more about in a second. Yeah, the relationship of those cycles.
There's an association I have with the center as the kind of center without locations, mysterious past, as being a sort of immaterial, almost. I think I remember it described as a sort of immaterial location in a human being. I don't know if that means it's not subject to time. It's my kind of odd question.
No,
It's
that's accurate.
the same
It's-
through all of whatever moment there is in the universe.
Yeah.
It's-
So, I think we should be careful not to talk in shorthand here, but I think it is without location or time. It is for actual stillness is constant and changeless.
Yeah.
It is the unity which includes everything that has happened and will happen, that is outside of any boundary, and therefore outside of any ability to transform,
Mhm.
which is what time and space is.
I don't know what you're going to say, but do you think of when you think of the Tao, do you think of it as the center of everything, or I'm just going with it.
Do I think of it as the center of everything?
No, I mean, when you think about the Tao and you're trying to describe it without just using words, but you are. Is it that sort of idea of the soul is at the center, or is it the entire picture of everything with the center and all of the manifestations and energy that's
Yeah.
involved? How do you
So the kind of mental gymnastic we want to end up being able to do, kind of feel intuitively, is that it is at the center of, but it includes all of that. So it's the center, and it is everything.
Having lived away from the center for a long time, it's pretty noisy out there. Not very still. I can get away from all that.
Sorry for the long-range T phenomenon here.
It's funny.
It's okay. So, we don't know where the stems and branches came from, who invented them, or what their original use and articulation was. The oldest written documents include the stems and branches. They are the oracle bone carvings. And so we think sort of semi-historically, semi-mythologically, that they're at least 5,000 years old, and that they may have preceded the Chinese language itself. One of the earliest poetic mythological references to them were the Emperor Jun, who rules over heaven and earth, had two different wives. One gave birth to the branches, one gave birth to the sons. And my sense is, and a lot of this is not things that have been established conclusively, but my intuition about it is so the birth of the suns were the birth of 10 suns, but the word for sun and the word for day is the same in Chinese. And the week used to be, and in some places still is, a cycle of 10 days. And so there were 3 weeks in a 30-day-ish month. And the branches were articulating a lunar pattern. So they're dividing the year, the solar year, into 12 parts. Because there are 12 to 13 moons in a year. So initially, perhaps it was a week pattern and a month pattern. And then, to my mind, through insight and wisdom, it was realized that these patterns repeat in a nested way inside any cycling unit. And so the 12 parts of the year have a direct correlate in the 12 two-hour segments of a 24-hour day. And that cycle of rising yang and then rising yin has the same pattern in the small cycle as it does in the large cycle. And then it turns out so do within a 2-hour segment. You can also identify a full cycle of yin and yang. And so each 10-minute segment has a branch and a stem as well. And so, so on the one hand, John asked a question last week, and then followed up a little bit on Telegram about the heavenly stems being the solar calendar and the branches being the lunar calendar. And it's true in the ways that I've just articulated, but really they're both articulating the passage of the solar year. And the new and full moons don't sync up with the beginning and endings of the branch articulated months. If that makes sense. So that's why it's not explicitly solar time and it's not explicitly lunar time.
Right. I think the thing I was mixing up is they're counting in years cycles of 10 and 12. I think that was the thing I was...
At different historical periods, you mean? Or?
Simultaneously. And
Oh.
then there are these convergences of the 60-year.
Right, so any unit of time is known by as it says in the Qing Jing Jing, each particular instance of the Tao has both yin and yang. And so each time and space instance has a stem and a branch, however you draw the boundaries of that instance, whether it's a year, a month, a day, or an hour. And they cycle together, but because one is 10 and one is 12, it's not just 10 or 12 different pairings that repeat. They're offset, and so the 10 begins again, and the 12 has 2 left to go. And so there, you might think at first there would be 120 patterns, 10 opportunities to mix with 12 variations. But in fact, yin is always with yin, and yang is always with yang. And so there are half that many patterns. There are 60 possible patterns, these combinations of yang and yin.
So is that kind of like a pattern that allows for kind of infinite growth? The fact that they're not perfectly aligned, it sort of, to me, gets into this idea of how the pattern is, the idea of free will is actually the pattern of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? It is not perfectly lined because it always has that possibility of within a certain range
Well, in
of
this,
the overlap. Because if it was right,
I think it's different from that, if I'm understanding you right. I think it's different because it's still fixed which stem is going to be next. You know, so so on the one hand, if infinite growth to me means the cycle continues. But as far as a possibility for intervention and going this way rather than that way,
well, it just makes me think of change. You know, where something that doesn't stay the same.
yeah,
I always think like if it's, I mean, I could see if it's perfectly lined up, it's also infinite.
yeah.
But I was thinking when you were saying it's not perfectly lined up, maybe I don't know all the other parts to it, and this is where the ignorance comes in.
No.
But it was just trying to understand how the action of possibility is already programmed infinitely in this, it not lining up perfectly. I mean,
Yeah,
that's way off, but.
I would identify instead the feeling of sensibility of will and possibility in the unfathomable complexity of the interrelation of all of these cycles. Rather than place it in what appears to be a gap and a lack of alignment. Because if you look at it as a cycle of 60 rather than a cycle of 10 and 12 interacting, then there's no lack of alignment, it's just a repeating cycle of 60.
Well, that's still in the thing that I'm thinking, but I don't think I can express it quite well. I was just, I guess I'm seeing like more like a visual model in my head that I'm unable to explain, but it works. So I was just, I guess I'll just go learn a little more.
No, it's good. Yeah, no, I'm trying to hear the past the articulation there because I see what you mean.
In the grand scheme of the model, it does all. But when we get into what might be called not aligned or not in synchronous, part of the adjustment, I think I'm going to let it be. But thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Just, I think that's similar thought pattern, which is that the period of the 60 is kind of a point of stability, but by having that not a fixed pairing, as you were describing, that introduces the possibility of some kind of tension. So there's a possibility for being out of alignment in some way more than there would be if everything was always paired the same way. You had 12 pairs of 12, of 2. But I don't know if that's
To kind of bring it back to alignment.
Yes,
to bring it back to.
yeah, so that I think I'm thinking something similar.
Yeah. It's hard to, Thanks, Phil.
Well, I think that
guess because I've always wondered, why isn't there always harmony? I mean, you have, why would you have disharmony? You know, that's already sort of anthropomorphizing it. But why, you know, why do we have, you know, droughts or bad rulers or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it depends where you're standing. I mean, so from the center, without location, there's no disharmony. There's no harmony. It's just movement and stillness, and movement and stillness. Movement is cycling. In order for it to move, it, you know, makes space here and something comes to fill it. And from a particular perspective, that space or that filling up of the space could be experienced as disharmony. But it's just movement.
So would it be almost like that's what you just said, is kind of like that's the mechanism of movement, is that it isn't, it gives it, oh boy, I'm gonna go too far. It gives it, it gives it the, you know, it gives it an opportunity to rock back and forth in the sense that it's not
It's not static.
static.
Yeah, I was just thinking that stillness is not stasis.
Right,
Stasis is an aspect of movement.
right.
And so having some misalignment, listening in a very loose way,
Sure.
so that
Yeah.
is a way of moving beyond stasis, or not moving beyond stasis, but if everything was always just one track, it feels like there'd be more possibility of stasis.
So, so what these articulations of the patterns do is allow us to perceive in more detail and subtlety the patterns and cycles that are naturally occurring. And so, somehow I want to step out of the, take at least one more step back from the sort of feeling like these are cogs in gears that are matched or mismatched, or simply different size gears, to a less mechanistic vision. And that is one that comes out of wholeness and stillness and clarity. And things coming into being, and just by virtue of being, they have they're separate from the wholeness, and so there's disharmony to some extent if you're inclined to identify it as that, and the harmonization is its return. But in that moment, call it from the Big Bang to the big contraction, that pattern begins by this entering that leaves an absence here and is a presence here, and that's the yin yang that begin to infinitely cycle. And even the physicist's articulation of the progression past the Big Bang follow this kind of more and more detail of coming into being, more parts. And so these systems just map these cycles. It isn't that there's a gear of heaven and a gear of earth, and they're interacting in this way, and we as humans are sometimes in it, sometimes outside it, and have a relationship to it. It's just that all of being is simultaneously doing this movement of transforming into its opposite continuously, and fully still and whole at the same time. But within these movement patterns, we can see these parts. And we see a cycle, it could be 10, 12, you can think of it as one cycle, 2 cycles, it can be 60. But we see a repeating cycle that helps us understand eventually, ultimately, the stillness at the center. But the words and symbols are just articulating, they're words that we're putting to an experience. As opposed to these great cogs interacting. I don't know if that weaves its way through those questions and comments successfully, but the tea is very strong. So.
It's wonderful.
So to come at the differences between the 12 and the 8 that Slava brought up on Telegram, I think you'll see from this kind of approach to it that it's these cycles are just happening, and we can divide it into 8 parts usefully, and see those 8 parts interact and the character that's distinct about each of those 8 parts, or we can divide it into 12. So the I Ching is an 8-part.
It's a different system approach, is what you're saying. It's like a different perspective into the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's
when
just a
I
different
say
model.
realms, what are, maybe this is too much, and this is not the time for it, but when you do say realm,
Mhm.
would the heavenly stems be a different realm from the earthly branches?
Nope, they're together in this manifest realm.
Okay, so it's a different just state of integration from like a different, not substance, but a different, what would you call it?
Well, so a kind of, maybe a helpful way to think about it is the heavenly stem energy coming from our relationship to heavenly bodies. And the earthly branch energy cycle being what we experience, manifest on the earth, on the body that we're on. In fact, just to confuse the matter, that energy also comes from the heavenly bodies. But we're identifying, it has enough distinction that we're going to say, look, this is the yin physical experience, the season is passing, the day and night are clear. This is a way that we can help ourselves understand our experience by using this distinction in interaction with the locations of the heavenly bodies, especially the 5 planets.
So you would just never use the word realm. I'm understanding that, but
Mhm.
I think I'm just misusing the word realm.
So realm has a technical meaning in Taoism and Buddhism, and it usually means the realm of form, the realm of formlessness, or the realm of desire. And
So that's not formlessness? It's just a different energy?
No, it's Jupiter and Mercury and Saturn.
Oh, right. And so would the energy that comes, that has this effect on us here, they contain realms?
So the layering of realms is present in each particle, for lack of a better articulation, and it would have a physical, energetic, and immaterial aspect of its existence. So the realms are always simultaneous in each moment or thing. But also, as we become familiar with this kind of way of relating to language and experience and abstraction in this tradition, so I kind of steered or corrected your articulation, saying that, it's not the heavenly realm in this sense, it's the heavenly bodies, it's actual bodies influencing our experience here on earth. On the other hand, it's also simultaneously the symbol for the heavenly realm. And in this language set, deeper you get into it, the symbol and the thing start to lose their distinction. And so it is Jupiter and Saturn, etc. And it is the heavenly realm, the immaterial realm, symbolically, figuratively, metaphorically, conceptually, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, in fact.
If you see it more as strings than I do as these divisions now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Continuums, kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions.
I'm sure putting in the words like vibration would really complicate things a little more. Maybe simplify it, but
Yeah, no, a vision of the world that is, a continuous spectrum of frequencies is precisely in alignment with this vision, even to the extent, as you see in the chart, each branch has a musical note correlated with it, and in fact, the identification of those notes was discovered, or maybe just demonstrated by a sage whose name I forget, but he took these huge, were they metal or bamboo pipes of lengths that he calculated and sunk them into the earth to their halfway point, filled them with ash, and then at each node transition in the year, one of those 12 pipes would sound and the ash would come flying out of the pipe, because the resonance of the earth met the resonance of the pipe. And so those notes are literal, like the vibration of that part of the cycle is literally in our physical world, part of our physical experience.
So
that what is called the pitch pipes, or is that something different? The system, I've seen that, the system of the pitch pipes. It sounds like it would be.
It would have a historical relationship to it, but I don't know that it's specifically referring to that.
I tried pitch pipes, but it was very sticky, and the ash would that pitch would fly out.
I'm not sure I know what that word is.
Pine sap pitch.
Ah, pitch pipe replicate. Too supple for me.
That's a one.
So Diana asked a question about the relationship to the fingers and these 12 parts, or parts of the body generally, but we ended up talking about the fingers. I forget how we got there. That was your question. And one of the ways that this pattern manifests in relationship to the body is a correlation between this cycle here in the hand. So it's each crease is a division, and each tip all the way around. So there are 12 parts, and Z is the base of the ring finger. We usually do this on our left hand to begin with, although the correlations are accurate on the right hand as well. And as we articulate them, we can touch them with our thumb, and then you'll recognize that's what we do sometimes in our mudras. So Z, rat, so this will be north and water down here, east and wood over here, south and fire up here, and metal down this side, 3 of each. And so Z, which is the peak of water, high, pig is over here. We begin counting with Z, which is rat, and Cho, ox, Yin, tiger, Mao, rabbit, Chun, dragon, Se, snake, Wu, horse, goat, Wei, goat, Shen, monkey, Yu, rooster, Shu, dog, Hai, pig. And so one way, these we just need to memorize over time. It's not going to become a part of your vocabulary in any other way, and a good way to do it is just to touch and recite as you go through. Zhe, Chao, Yin, Mao, Chun, Se, Wu, Wei, Shen, Yu, Shu, Hai, Zi, Cho, and just kind of chant the cycle.
So in the mudra that we do for the morning ritual,
The Zi Wu. So it's this Zi and this Wu that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Zi Wu.
so the point that you're touching
So
is on your ring finger or your
so
middle finger?
the points that are being used are, in addition to the thumb making connections, are the base of the ring finger and the tip of the middle finger on each hand. And so the mudra is the thumb, so it's as if your left hand is grabbing your right thumb, but the details inside are that the thumb is connecting to the ring finger base crease, and the middle finger tip is connecting to the opposite side of that crease. So the Wu, the peak yang, is being joined with the peak yin, the Zi. And then and then the thumb is connecting with the Wu here as well.
And a woman do...
So in this one, it's the same.
Okay.
Yep. So the left is inside the right. And the other one is perfectly safe to do the other way. And you could get two high-level masters in the room and they would disagree about whether it was right to do it differently for females and differently for males. It's the way I was taught, so I teach it this way.
I have to go now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah. So we started to talk about the detail of the rat last time. Let's just make our way through the information on the chart, and we'll talk about questions that come up, and just get some out loud exposure, because just reading the chart can be a little bit entangling sometimes. So we begin counting with winter solstice, with Zi-rat, with peak yin. So it is yang water. We won't worry too much about the detail of the hidden stems, but they're here for reference, and it is the heavenly stem energy that is hidden inside of this clear earthly energy that is manifesting. And in my view, and in the articulation that I shared a few minutes ago, these are actually what's happening. It is the influence. All of the energies we experience in transitions are the influence of these heavenly bodies of which we are one. But they are hidden inside what we see, and what's useful to articulate is winter solstice. That's yin water there, Gui. And the trigram is calm water, which in the circle is at north, and is north, and is water, and is winter solstice. So these are approximately 4-week segments, and so there are two-week seasons that we articulate, and it can be metaphorical if you're not at a midpoint latitude, as we are. But for us, it fits in quite intuitively. Major snow and winter solstice are included in those. Those are two-week seasons. The organ associated is the kidney. It's the organ itself, but it's also the organ system, that aspect of our constellation of inner spirits, inner energy, that part of the 5. The meridians associated are the gallbladder and the foot, Xiaoyang. We won't worry about that too much unless there are doctors in the room. the tone, the note is Huang Zhong. I don't have the Chinese here, but Huang should be either yellow or venerable, and Zhong should be center, and the note is C. So the qualities associated with these as they manifest in a human body, also in nature, but these are very personified qualities. It's not the word I'm looking for, but I think you know what I mean. Wise, flexible, optimistic, and then if it's out of balance, foolish, selfish, fearful. These are qualities associated with water and with this particular segment of water. We won't worry about the transformation. What it means is if it's in the presence of fire, it will transform to fire. That's the next layer of complexity when stem and branch pairs are interacting with other stem and branch pairs, as they do in smaller units of time, and then also in the nature of the formed world around you, whether you're facing the sun, etc. So the mantra is Hong. Among other things, it means sacrifice or giving over, and also associated with thunderbolt. So it is a connection from heaven to earth. It is the initial heavenly energy in a pattern of stillness, earthly stillness, which you see illustrated in the sixth line, Gua, the hexagram, in the last column there. So initial yang. And the pure yang hand seal, which we mentioned last time, but I'll mention it again. So pinkies are associated with water and are the first, and wood and fire, metal and earth. And they also have corresponding numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in this mudra, we're connecting the fingertips of the pinkies associated with the number 1, fingertips of the middle fingers associated with the number 3, and the tips of the thumbs associated with 5. Odd numbers are yang, even numbers are yin. These are all of the they add up to 9, which is so 1 plus 3 plus 5, which is the symbol of pure yang. So that's the explanation of the mudra. The name of the form is Yongsheng Yuan Hai. Yang rises or gives rise or gives birth, is birthed in the ocean of origin. The original Yuan is source or origin, Hai is sea. The yang rises in the yin. Any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like kindergarten over here. So I mean, not being so versed in this, so my questions feel very basic.
That's great. We should always
But
return to
like,
those. Yeah.
Why rat? And where does that,
Yeah.
where did that start or
Yeah. So.
evolve from? And I look at the homeopathic picture of rat's blood as well, as I look at this, which is very interesting.
Well, I'd be interested if it makes sense in this way, with these kinds of associations. So, rat, part of the Chinese understanding of rat is associated with its intelligence and kind of resourcefulness. And also its tendency to be low and inside in
Right.
wet places. And maybe even this kind of movement from being down in the hole to out in the air.
Yeah.
But this comes from before things were written down, and so we don't know precisely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure, I just wondered what.
Yeah.
I think of actually rats running in the subways.
Yeah, yeah.
They're bringing life to a place that, as you look into it, seems the most unfriendly to
Yeah.
life in some ways.
Yeah,
Just the poetry of that.
yeah. And one of the main kind of orientations that Lao Tzu brings in the Tao Te Ching is water seeks the lowest place, and
With the rat.
and the Tao seeks the lowest place, and then there's this kind of behavioral association that Chuang-Tzu emphasizes with having no pride or aspiration, just being non-striving, occupy the lowest place, be the crooked tree that has no use. So that's woven in
Mhm.
here as well, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
It's really helped me with the diagram and with the work.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like it really correlates.
It's
you
very
know,
precise.
It feels like
Yeah.
a shortcut, to when we did it,
Yeah.
to how the energies
The hexagram.
meet. Yes.
Yeah.
And also how it feels
Yeah.
and how it rises and exchanges
Yeah.
those different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most immediate for me.
Yeah.
Why are there two symbols on the chart?
So they're articulating different patterns, different aspects of the pattern. So the first one is another circular pattern like the branches, and it is the pattern of the Bagua, the 8-3 line pattern. Gua just means pattern. And then this particular sequence, the tidal or sovereign sequence of hexagrams, are extracted from their cyclical, they're part of the 64, in order to show a very explicit growth of yang and then growth of yin. So,
Threw me off, actually.
so one way to use that insight information would be through cycles of studying the details of these of the associations, visualize the 6-line pattern as you do the form as a distillation of all of those patterns.
And is the first pattern over here that I pointed out, is that like a direction, is that a energy direction information?
It's
I'm not start getting
It-
it.
It
The
also,
hidden stems, sorry. I'm
oh,
sorry,
the hidden
guava,
stems,
sorry,
or the guava?
The guava.
Yeah.
Next to the hidden stems.
You
Yeah.
said that it's still water. That symbol made sense to me.
Mhm.
But does that mean that the rest of these symbols have to do with water? Is it
Nope.
the same metaphor, or is it different? Because it's, this, this would be associated
Oh, I
with.
see it, fire and water, now that makes sense to me, so I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Well, so the patterns are essential patterns that aren't limited to either articulating time or direction. It's traditional to have them in mind as part of your understanding of time and direction in this context. This form doesn't follow the 8-part pattern, but the pattern is there in its relationship
It is
to the.
direction though, that's what.
It includes direction.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
I was understanding.
Yep.
Okay.
But because there are 4 cardinal and 4 axial directions, that's 8. And so they, in articulating in their relationship to a 12-part form, they repeat a couple of times.
Mhm.
Some of them repeat. And so the
Not-
eight
not the
are a
same
little
or
bit more
same, but-
approximate
Mhm.
because in their relationship to the 12, because the segments of the pie don't overlap precisely.
Okay, back to that.
Back to that, yeah.
Okay.
So Ira, they add to our understanding. They remind us of understandings we have about the intuitive sense of that water pattern. But the most clear and precise cycle is represented in the pattern of 12 distinctions, is represented by these 12 hexagrams. And you can, if you put them linearly, you would see it as a wave.
Almost like the exchange between water and fire, movement. I mean, that's overly simple, but.
So no, it is, except that so it's useful to say that and try to feel at the same time water and fire is representative of yin and yang,
Mhm.
and not worry about the water and fire trigrams when we're having that thought, but rather see it as growth of yang, growth of yin
Mhm.
cycle.
Yeah, it's better that way because water and fire, I mean, it's so complex to even think of what fire and what water is, but I do yin and yang, yes.
Yeah, so, part of the flexibility of mind that these, learning these patterns develops in us is this simultaneous, literal and symbolic on many levels, many different levels to which we might be paying attention intentionally to one or two of them, not all of them at a given time. But when we say water, we might be talking about winter, we might be talking about our kidneys, we might be talking about pure yin, we might be, but we want to be able to narrow so that we can make a grammatical structure in our minds and in conversation, but we want to always hold all of the associations as possibilities with that particular symbol and recognize that they're simultaneously accurate in all their different contexts. So one kind of literal way to attune with this pattern, and align your practice, this form with it, would be to visualize light at the particular location in the body that these diagrams suggest. So beginning in the lower dantian, and then behind the navel, behind the solar plexus, behind the heart. Really, it jumps up here behind the upper dantian. But those are all within the center without location. And then when we return to the root, we were returning to the physical body to participate in the movement of this energy in this, in the relative sense, earthly manifestation.
And are we in a sense earth or body when we do this practice?
So both, but I think yes to the way you're asking the question. Yeah. So after a yin and yang of each part of the cycle, there's an earth phase in this 12-branch cycle. So Tsurat is yang water, and it is the peak of the water energy in the cycle, in the year, in the day. And then the integration of this initial water, growth of water, this integration phase is Cho, ox, which is yin, earth. Associated with the Gun Mountain trigram, one yang line at the top, two yin below. The direction northeast, time 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. In the seasonal pattern, minor cold and major cold between first week of January and the first week of February. The spleen, organ system, the liver and foot Julian meridians, the note C sharp called Da Lu. Qualities in a person of stability, kindness, toughness, or if out of balance, stubbornness, indecisiveness, which is like can't move, right? It's too much earth, too much stability. There are other types of indecisiveness as well, but I think you can feel that relationship, sort of excess inertia. Can't get off the couch. And also longing, desiring what isn't there. It transforms to damp earth if in the presence of strong earth energy. The mantra in our form is Hu, which is also the word for sigh. It's this letting go. We say it silently. Hu and Shu in the form are performed silently after getting a feeling for the resonance of the sound. The mudra is called the Earth Heart Seal, Shindi Yin. Earth Heart means kindness and acceptance, forgiveness. And so in the name of the form, Shindi Kwang Wong, with a kind heart, all is forgiven. Or with the Earth Heart, the Earth Heart embraces all, takes everything in without judgment, transforms it into vitality.
In the chart, I see that you've this yin earth is separated from, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there's two yin earths. So, is it, looking back at what you drew, an earth in the middle?
Mhm.
So I'm trying to, take a trip on that,
Yeah,
with some voyaging through this on that.
yeah,
So, it is the element of itself,
mhm,
and then it is the earth in relationship to the element of like water as the next, next combination. And is that kind of how it travels? Then it's like you get the
There's
wood
an aspect of return
Yes.
and integration. And so maybe it's useful to notice, to point out that the hidden stems are Ji, which is yin earth, Shin, which is yin metal, and Gui, which is yin water. So Gui because yin water because we're in the water phase still, and it is yin earth. So these will be yin. Metal. It is considered the graveyard of metal. It's the last of the metal energy that the fall initiated. And it's Ji because it's earth and integrating. And so it is water, it is earthly,
Mhm.
this sense of integration and return
Mhm.
and there's often kind of a slowing
Mhm.
to that phase that feels like allows the peaking energy to said to integrate too many times, but to become full.
Mhm.
Um,
That's the basic template of, because it's always related to,
So-
it's the earth center.
One way to, so the way that I drew it before is kind of a five elements way of articulating.
Yeah, I need to go.
Thanks, Tom. Good to see you. So, fire, water, wood, metal, earth. And for the process of phasing to move in this way. But it's not that, don't worry too much about the shape, it's not that it's different in some way. You could put Earth over here, except that part of Earth's fundamental nature is its centeredness. And
And is it a whole different cycle that begins if it goes to fire to metal? That becomes a whole, not related to earth.
no,
but-
it's just another way of thinking about it. So, so one way that this is drawn with respect to the branch energies is with
Mhm.
4 Earths.
Okay.
And so each of these phases should be a little bit this way. Each of these phases has, wood, earth,
Mhm.
which is dragon, the last phase of the wood. And then fire, earth, way, goat, and then shoe, dog, middle, earth. And so each energy wave has this return and integration. Sorry for the messy diagram.
That's great.
Um,
That helped me.
So sometimes it's drawn like this, sometimes it's more, it just depends on what you need to think about.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's drawn just with the 12 parts of the, so there's, with the 12 divisions, and then the earths are just in line
Mhm.
in the cycle.
Mhm. And it starts to come together, it really comes together.
Yeah. It's really beautiful and amazing. I mean, and that sort of makes it seem small in a way. But this kind of articulation and overlay of patterns where everything's true simultaneously on all these different levels is the real beauty and power of the Taoist tradition. Well, where a character, a sound, a note, a pattern of lines, an organ system, everything is just, each way of seeing it is as accurate as the next, and they all relate in these ways that inform us about all the other parts and makes accessible pretty directly a kind of feeling of awe at the this song that we participate in of existence. So let's look at the details of Yin Tiger. Might be helpful to kind of look at the character and either soak it up before you look at each of the parts of the columns, or just keep looking at the character as we go through. Also, it is the base of the index finger. So if you want, you can touch that. Yin Tiger. It is yang wood, initial strong wood impulse. Its hidden stems are Jia, Wu, and Bing. Jia wood, yang wood, Wu, yang earth, and Bing, yang fire. It is the birth of fire. We're still in the northeast section of the compass here, although again the 8 is not precisely aligned with the 12. It is the 3 to 5 a.m. time of day, first week of February to the first week of March. The 2-week seasons we call establish spring and rain water. The organ is the gallbladder, the yang wood organ. Meridian is the lung and the hand, tai yin. The tone, the note, is D. The qualities are careful, powerful, graceful, or out of balance, angry, and arrogant.
It's like a fire rising or starting or
Yeah. Coming to the exterior, kind of coming out. Yeah. The transformation is Xiaoyang ministerial fire. So in the presence of strong fire, it can transform to fire. The sound is Shu, the mantra association. Same shoes as in the Tugu Nashin, and there is associated with the wood organ system as well. The mudra is the Qian Kun Yin. Qian, 3 or 6 yang lines, Kun 3 or 6 yin lines, symbolizing pure yang and pure yin, and sometimes original yang and original yin. And, Xu Juan Qian Kun, Xu is hidden in the sleeves, and so in the tradition, the robe covers the hands, and this cycling is hidden, and it's also a metaphor for the hull, the sleeve of the body, hiding the cycles internally of Qian and Kun. So in the dictionary, if you look up Shu Chun, it has a kind of literal out of sight meaning, and then the etymology of that is this sleeve. So out of sight, Qian and Kun cycle. And here, the heavenly energy and earthly energy are balanced. 3 yang beneath 3 yin.
And that's where the first thunder,
Right? Yep. Usually. So let's leave it there. Made a little progress on the details of the particularities. Thank you. Glad you could stay, Ira. Nice to have you.
Thank you.